Hi, my name is Deb from DG Reads, and this is my furry sidekick Kylie, and today we're here to kick off a vlog for the Amazing Readathon. If you don't know what I'm talking about, the Amazing Readathon is a month-long readathon for all of June, hosted by Bree from Four Paws in a Book, and it is a lot of fun and a lot of chaos. Basically, you don't know all the prompts you're going to be reading for. There's going to be 10 different city prompts that drop during the month, and you have to hurry up and try to read your book before another prompt comes out in order to get points for your team. Once you've reached your city, you can do what's called sightseeing and read some extra books for some extra points. And I did specifically do an Amazing Readathon TBR tied in with the sightseeing prompts and my prompt ball TBR game. I will link that for you. This may or may not wind up correlating with what I actually read during this particular vlog, but we'll see. As I'm filming this, it's actually June 3rd, so I didn't start right away at the beginning of the month because I wasn't 100% sure if I was going to vlog this. And the reason for that is I was slumping really hard at the end of May. May was a really fun month with Escape the Readathon. My team won, but at the end of the month, I think I had just pushed myself a little too hard, picked up some books that maybe I didn't enjoy quite as much, but they fit prompts. And at the end of the month, I really just wanted to lay in bed and watch TV. So I wasn't sure how much energy I was going to have going into the month of June and into the Amazing Readathon. But after a much better reading weekend, I have decided that the new month, new TBR, new readathon has given me energy to get back into reading and enjoy my time doing it, and that doing a vlog like this will also add some extra motivation and extra fun to it. So I'm just going to catch you up on where I am in the readathon so far, and we'll go from there. The other reason that I considered not vlogging this is some of the books I'm going to wind up using for Amazing Readathon are going to be part of other video projects, and I didn't want to wind up duplicating myself. So what I've decided is I'm not going to not use books for other projects because I'm not going to let books go aside that could earn my team points, but I'm just going to mention them briefly here and let you know what I'm reading them for or where you're going to be able to find my thoughts on them and not duplicate what I said about them. So catching you up, in the long time ago, that was May, on May 31st, we got our first prompt, and that was to get to Toronto, we needed to read a book we didn't purchase or that we didn't pay for. That gave me a lot of options. I love my library. I've picked up a lot of books from publishers, other things, but I decided it was the perfect opportunity to kick off reading for my SPFBOX TBR, which I will link for you. SPFBO is the self-published fantasy blog off, and I'm very happily participating in that under Team Cassidy, and I have 10 books over the next couple of months to read from the initial 300 entries and select a semi-finalist to give to Cassidy. Again, there's a full TBR about all of my books, but I did start reading Father of Constructs by Aaron Renfro, and since the readathon started at 9 o'clock Friday evening in my time zone, I was able to make a good dent in it that day, and then it took me a lot of Saturday to wind up finishing it, just because I am more formally reviewing this one and vlogging the process and all of that. So I did make it to Toronto reading that book and submitted my points for that, and then was able to start some sightseeing with the rest of my weekend. I haven't finished anything else because I did wind up picking up a couple of things, but I'm hoping to at least finish one, maybe 2 sightseeing books before we get a new prompt. So in terms of what I am currently reading, I have Winter's Heart by Robert Jordan, and this one is book 9 in the Wheel of Time series. I am about 45% into it currently, and I have a live show for this weekend, so I definitely will be finishing it during the week. It is not small, it's far from his largest book though, and I don't entirely love these, but I find them pretty easy to read, and I'm generally doing read a couple chapters a day kind of an approach with this to finish it out this week. This one will work for my over 500 pages sightseeing prompt. And then not at all on my TBR, but it does suit one of the 500-point sightseeing prompts, is Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands by Heather Fawcett. And this is the sequel to Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. And I enjoyed the first book. I didn't 100% get obsessed with it like a lot of people did, but I did want to continue on in the series. This is actually a gifted copy that I received from Del Rey, and I've been enjoying it so far. I'm about 3/4 of the way through. I think this will be the one that I probably finish up first this morning. It is continuing on with the characters we met in the first book, continuing the story on from there. And then lastly, I am reading How to Make a Horror Movie and Survive by Craig DeLuey. This is an upcoming release that will be out on June 18th, and I have a gifted e-arc from Tor. This is one that I will be vlogging as part of another vlog that will be coming up later in June. And it's basically following a man who makes horror movies, and he finds a possessed camera in order to make some truly horror. And I'm having a pretty good time with it. Spoiler alert for the vlog. So that's where things stand right now. I am about to launch into a very chaotic work week, so I'm a little bit afraid about keeping up with everything, but I'll keep you up to date as I go along. I woke up this morning to an announcement in the Readathon chat and was really afraid that the next city prompt had already dropped, but it hadn't. But it could happen at any time. So I'm gonna try to finish at least one sightseeing book before that happens, if I get a chance to do so listening to audio while I work. Especially the Emily Wilde book will work for that. So I will give you an update once I know what's going on, what's next, and all of that. Okay, it's the end of Monday, and work wasn't quite as chaotic as I had feared it might be, but that's a good thing because the Amazing Readathon definitely brought some chaos into the day for me. So let me catch you up how my day went. So first up, on my way to work, I finished Emily Wilde. I enjoyed this one. I gave this one a 4, which I think might even be a little bit higher than I gave the first book. I either gave that one, I think, like a 3.5 or a 4. So not a huge difference, but I had a good time with this. I definitely will pick up the third one when the time comes. And this was to read a book with footnotes, and it was a sightseeing prompt, which got my team 500 bonus points. And then with that, I went ahead and picked up another one for bonus points, and that is Our Hideous Progeny. This one actually is on my TBR for the month, and this was a gifted copy from Harper Perennial. And this is a kind of spin-off of Frankenstein. So we're following Mary, who is the great niece of Victor Frankenstein. She is going through some family papers. She discovers some information about her uncle who went missing in the Arctic. She kind of figures some stuff out about this creation he made. I got to 94%, and then things happened. So I'm almost done with this one, but I'm going to have to put it down because we got a new city prompt drop. So for that one, we are on our way to Buenos Aires, and we need a book with a dual POV. And for that, I'm picking up Hell Followed With Us. This was on my TBR as a sightseeing prompt, but it will work for this prompt. As best I can tell, there's a Benjamin and a Nicholas in the synopsis for this one. It is a dystopian horror, so it's not going to get me the fantasy bonus points, but it is by a trans author, so I will get some bonus points for my team for that. And it's a book that I've been really wanting to get to for quite some time. So it sounds really intriguing. The main character is running away from a cult that raised him. It's kind of the end of the world. We've got monsters. We've got a lot of things that definitely are calling my name. So this is going to be my priority for the next little bit, to go ahead and make sure I get my city prompt book done for the readathon and then go from there. I do really want to get back to a couple other things. I definitely will still be doing some reading for Wheel of Time tonight, but I'm hoping to make a good dent in this one. I do have both a physical copy and an audiobook, so I can definitely listen on my way to work tomorrow as well. And hopefully work will stay pretty calm, so I can actually squeeze in some breaks and some lunches and get some reading in tomorrow. I will come back when I have some more thoughts and some more updates on the readathon. Happy Tuesday morning. Kylie's got a new bow tie to celebrate our journey to Buenos Aires, so she wanted to say good morning as well. And I am here to give you a really quick update on my reading. So I hit the 50% mark in Hell Followed With Us, and I am flying through this, which is great for the readathon and also great for my reading. We're starting off following Ben, or Benji, who is a gay trans youth. I want to say he's 16, but I could be making that up. And he has been raised in a cult. His mother is a true believer. It's a very religious cult, but very twisted cult. They're the ones who have brought about the Armageddon that is hitting the world, and Benji has been infected with a bioweapon to kind of help their cause out. So he's a danger, but also he doesn't want to be used by them to hurt the world, people, etc. As the book opens, his father is running away with him, but his father's killed. And Benji gets rescued and taken in by a LGBTQ plus youth center. And it seems to be a very welcoming place with a wide cast of characters. The second perspective we're following is Benji's, and he is an autistic youth at the center and kind of a leader there. And initially, he's really the only one who knows what Benji has inside of him, this bioweapon. The other thing is there are some ulterior motives there. Nick's not being 100% upfront with why Benji's being brought into this group. So there's a high level of intrigue so far with this, high level of interest. It's super fast to read, and I'm hopeful to land in Buenos Aires, possibly even this morning, between the time I need to get ready to leave the house and the commute, because I do have the audiobook. So hopefully I will be back later with the final thoughts on this and some sightseeing thoughts as well. It's now Wednesday morning. I didn't do an update last night because I just was tired after the workday. I figured I'd give you a quick update this morning. No news in terms of new prompts or anything for the readathon, so I just am working on Buenos Aires still. I finished on my way home last night, Hell Followed With Us, and I had a really good time with this one. There were a few things in terms of the world building that I personally would have liked to see fleshed out a little bit more. The book really starts in the middle of the action. Our main character, Benji's already infected with this bioweapon, and the cult is already after him. All of that is happening as the book opens. I would have loved to see a little bit more of the before and how some of these things came about, how exactly this Armageddon was launched before he was infected, things like that. Just part of my kind of world-driven readerness. But I really enjoyed a lot of the discussions in here about identity. There's a lot of different rep going on in here, which I think was great. The author has said that they are both trans and autistic, so the fact that we had a trans character and an autistic character I think was really well done. And there's just a lot of conversations. We get to see more of the cult as we get later in the book, and I do like that the cult and the people there weren't described in a very shallow way. There's a lot of variety to the people there. In general, they're all horrible. I'm not saying any of them are okay, but there is some gray zone. There are people that Benji has some fond memories of. They weren't 100% awful all of the time. There are a few people who accepted them as Benji, even as Benji's mother, and most of the leadership are still using the wrong pronouns and Benji's dead name, and there's a lot of ugliness going on. But in the end, I really enjoyed this one, and it got a 4.5 for me. So with that book, I got to Buenos Aires last night, and I can spend my day today sightseeing. I'm kind of thinking probably a new prompt will drop maybe tomorrow, but it could be any time. But I'm hoping to actually finish up some sightseeing before I move on. And I almost forgot, but I did also finish up last night Our Hideous Progeny. And the reason I almost forgot is I was at 94% before the last prompt drop. So I really only had a few pages left to go in this last night, but I did finish it. So this was for the prompt to read an author who uses initials because the author's name is C.E. McGill on the book. I liked liked this in general. It was a little bit slower than I wanted. It was a little bit more historical than horror in my mind, which is kind of what I wanted from it. I enjoyed following Mary, who's the great niece of Victor Frankenstein, and there are so many great conversations in here about women's place in the world, their lack of agency, their lack of involvement or people allowing them to be involved in the world of science, for example. There's just a lot of really good stuff going on in here, but I did find it a little bit slow, and I think that's partially just I'm kind of slumping on historical fiction in general. So it took me a little bit longer to get through than I would have preferred, but overall, I think it is a really well-crafted book, and it has a lot of great things to say, so this one wound up with a 3.5. So with that, I do plan to spend the day doing some sightseeing around Buenos Aires with my reading today, so hopefully I get a chance to squeeze some good reading in while I'm at work. Good morning. It is now Thursday. We're almost to Friday, thankfully. And yesterday was another long day at work, so I didn't do any updates last night, but I do have some reading updates for you this morning, and that is, well, I'm almost done with Winter's Heart by Robert Jordan, the Wheel of Time book I've been working on to get finished by this weekend. I have about an hour of active listening time left with the audio, so I'm excited to be done with that one today, hopefully. And then I decided to pick up yesterday A Misfortune of Lake Monsters, and this is by Nicole M. Wolverton, and this was a gifted e-arc from CamCat Books. And this was my TBR pick for a title with 5 words in it. This is a YA horror following 2 characters. Lemon has been dreaming of getting out of her small town her whole life, and then just recently she's been informed by her grandfather that instead she's going to have to stay around and pretend to be the city's lake monster. So that premise really caught my attention when I was looking through books. And as I started reading, I realized we get also the perspective of one of her best friends who happens to also be in love with her, and his perspective gives us a little bit more of an outside view. The book itself wound up being much younger of a YA than I expected. These are teenagers, they're in their senior year of high school, so I expected it to be YA, but it felt a little bit younger to me. Lemon's very oblivious to the fact that Troy is falling all over her, and there's just a lot more relationship angst going on in here than the horror elements for a lot of the book. The horror elements do become true horror. I will give a trigger warning. There are dogs in this book, and horror doesn't tend to go well for dogs, and this is not the book to break that cycle. So thankfully it was an ebook. Kylee didn't listen along with me. The story itself basically is Lemon has to pretend to be this lake monster. It helps keep her grandparents' business going to have this lore happening. It helps the whole town to have this lore happening. But then one day she's out near the lake and an actual monster attacks. And it does get bloody, it does get gory. And some of that I did enjoy for the just kind of fun, easy read. It was very quick to read, but in the end, it just was a little more juvenile maybe than I personally had wanted. So I think a younger audience this would work better for. Ultimately, this one is getting a 2.5. It is now Thursday evening, and I'm so glad that tomorrow's Friday. It's been a very long week. But I do have a few reading updates for you. There haven't been any updates on a new prompt, so we're still in Buenos Aires and I'm still working on some sightseeing reads. And that includes Winter's Heart by Robert Jordan. This is book 9 in Wheel of Time. I've talked about it before. By the time this goes live, there will be a whole live show discussion about this one where you can hear my thoughts and the rest of the group. So I will keep that linked down below. And then based on one of Bree's recommendation videos, I picked up The Empress of Salt and Fortune by Nevo from the library, and I wound up listening to this on audio today. There is a woman who is a new bride to the emperor and very lonely, and then there is a handmaiden who befriends her. There's a lot of really good discussions in here, and I enjoyed this one. I did get a little distracted. Even though it's short, I kept getting a little bit pulled away from it, so I need to maybe read the rest of the series when I'm a little bit better focused, but still had a really good time with this. And then lastly, I picked up one from my actual TBR for the month, and that is The Editor by Stephen Rowley. This is an author I've read from before, and I really enjoy his books. And this one, we're following an author who is selling his first book, and lo and behold, the editor who has decided she really likes his book and wants to work with him is Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis. So we're following him and his relationship with his partner, his relationship with Jackie, his relationship especially with his mother, which is very fraught, and his book really encompasses that relationship, and it causes a lot of tension. So it's a really interesting character study. I love bookish books, and even though it's historical fiction, it doesn't feel super historical, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So that is where I'm at. I'm about halfway into this one, so it should be a pretty quick finish. Possibly I may wind up reading it at work tomorrow. We'll see. The new prompt could drop tonight, could drop tomorrow, could drop at any time really, so it would be good to get this one in for some sightseeing if I can before that happens, but we'll see. Otherwise, I'll figure out what's next and let you know when I have an update. Happy Friday! I woke up this morning to a new prompt drop, so we are traveling to Berlin, and Kylie got a new bow tie. So she's excited about that, you can tell. Actually, she really just wants to go look out the window, so I'm gonna let her do that. And give you a little bit of an update, because I did in fact finish up my last sightseeing prompt while I was still in Buenos Aires, and I really loved this. It took me a little bit to get into it, but I think it did relationships, complicated relationships, really well. It took a few twists and turns. It definitely pulled on the heartstrings quite a lot, and it definitely made me emotional. So this one gets a 5 from me. I will be picking out a new book for the new prompt for Berlin, and that is to pick a book with movement in the title. So I have a few ideas, but I'll let you know for sure what I wind up with when I get back to you next. Happy Saturday. I had a really rough day of work yesterday. It was mentally and physically exhausting, but right now it's Saturday morning. I've got puppy here on my lap, hanging out. I've got my coffee, and I'm ready to give a reading update since I did not do that last night. I'm looking a little rough this morning. I can see it, you can see it, but let's move on. Like I said, I think in my last update we had our Berlin prompt, and that was to read a book with movement in the title. So for this prompt, which was a little bit of a harder one, to find things that I could get on audio to take with me for the day and also meet the prompt, but I decided to pick up Happiness Falls by Angie Kim, which is a book that I've really been trying to get to. It's an author that I absolutely loved before, so when my library had to skip the line copy of the audiobook, I immediately snatched this one up and read it. Does it give me a lot of bonus points? No, but it is 387 pages, which isn't nothing, and it gets me to Berlin. And in fact, it got me to Berlin because I wound up binge reading the whole thing yesterday. I didn't get a lot of reading time during the day, but I did in fact get the chance to just kind of put this on audio, read it along a little bit, and just veg out last night, which is exactly what I needed at the end of a long week. So in this, we're following a family, and it's a mother and father, twins who are in college age, and their younger son, Eugene. Eugene is autistic and nonverbal, and much of the family's energy has been very focused on Eugene and giving him a good quality of life. They all love him, they all care about him, and spend a lot of time with him. As the book opens, the father and Eugene have gone off on one of their normal walks into nature, and it's not very far away, but it's a place that they go very frequently. Eugene comes home the father does not. And this winds up being a huge investigation into a lot of different things. It takes on a lot of mysteries. There are twists and turns to that mystery. It also talks a lot about different ideas of how people who don't have quote unquote normal verbal abilities can communicate. And even a family where people absolutely love Eugene, there's still assumptions made about what he can and can't do. And he knows what happened to their father, but is there a way to get that communication to get answers for the rest of the family? And it had a lot of great discussions. The book itself is narrated by the daughter of the family, and there are snippets of writings that the father had made, and theories and ideas about what happiness means, and a lot of kind of red herring potential clues from the author. And this just was such an engaging read, such beautiful writing, so mind-bending in some ways to think about things different ways, and I really appreciated it for all of that. And it was definitely a 5-star read for me. Very much potential to be my favorite of the month. With that, I am not sure exactly where I'm off to next. I don't expect we'll get another prompt today, so it's going to be a sightseeing day, but I'll probably start by finishing up How to Make a Horror Movie and Survive by Craig DeLuey, because that's one I've been needing to get back to, and finish off for a different vlog, and then I will pick something up for sightseeing specifically today and let you know later what that is. It's a little bit later on Saturday now, and I have finished up How to Make a Horror Movie and Survive by Craig DeLuey, and this again is one I'm not going to go into detail here because it will be coming in a vlog really soon, possibly on Saturday after this post, I think is the goal. I've now finished all the books, so editing needs to happen, and then that will be done. I actually have my currently reading shelf on Goodreads down to 0 books, which is exciting and also daunting to figure out what's next. But with that, I think I'm actually gonna go ahead and wrap up this week's vlog here. And next week, spoiler alert for those who made it this far, I will be adding an extra element to pick out books next week, just to give myself a little more challenge and a little bit more excitement, and I'm looking forward to seeing what's happening. So as soon as I end this, I'll be starting that one. And I do want to thank you very much for being here, and please leave me some comments below. Have you read any of the books I read this week? Are you participating in the readathon? How's it going for you? I've been having a ton of fun with Team Fantasy, and really appreciate the team and the readathon in general for getting me out of that reading slump I was in at the end of May, and I'm feeling that reading mojo again. My favorite book this week definitely was Happiness Falls by Angie Kim, and that I highly recommend picking up if you're interested in mysteries and literary fiction or anything along those lines. If you've made it this far and don't have anything to comment below, give me an emoji that makes you think of happiness. So thank you again so much for being here. I would really appreciate it if you would hit that like button below, subscribe if you're interested in more of my content, and with that, I will leave you here and catch you in the next video.